Mere Conservatism.
All right, and welcome to another edition of Mere Conservatism. And of course, this is a program that looks at the issues of the day in the light of conservative principles. I'm Cleve Walker and my good buddy David Perry, who is not here in the studio because we're trying to kind of be careful about things. Is that right, David?
Yeah, well, I happened to be in a location last week that spawned a few positive tests.
Uh-huh.
So there's a few people that I was around that ended up testing positive. So I am just kind of staying away from people for the next couple of days. I have no symptoms or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I'm in the clear, but just to be careful, I just wanted to. I don't want to get you sick, Cleve. You're in that risk category. You're pretty old, so I don't want to.
Wait a sec. I don't know how. Well, I'm about 30 years or so older than you, but I don't feel too old at all.
You're frail. You're feeble. I couldn't risk you getting this thing.
Thank you for that.
So,
I do appreciate your consideration, and it is the wise thing that we all need to do.
You know, one thing that I've been doing, Cleve, and I recommend everybody do this if they're worried about possibly having COVID symptoms, is just eat a lot of sweet things just to make sure that you still have your taste buds.
Aha.
Because that's a symptom. So I eat lots of cake, lots of ice cream, candy, stuff like that, and it's strictly for medicinal purposes. I mean, I'm just trying to make sure that I can still taste everything.
Yeah, somehow I don't think the CDC would probably, put much credence in that, but we'll take your word for it, David. Well, now, David, since COVID has come up, you, of course, heard the announcement by Pfizer about the vaccine that sounds like a pretty sure thing. That they were talking about 90% effectiveness, which is pretty good for any vaccine. Since you've been faced up with this a couple of times, how important do you think that is? And do you find it at all suspicious, and I've talked to some who had, that the announcement of the vaccine comes out after the election?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to, me, I like to assume everybody's best intentions. So I don't really think so, but it's possible. It is weird. I mean, it is weird right before, well, I should say right after the election, this news comes out, which is really big news, very positive news, had a very positive effect on the stock market and things. I don't know. I'm not sure, but
can you imagine the impact that it would have had if it had come out before the election? It would have been a strong boost for Trump.
You would think so, but you never know how the media would have taken it, spun it. They wouldn't have covered it probably, so it may not have penetrated that much. I mean, the bottom line is that Trump is really he is behind the eight ball because he's got an entire media apparatus that is working against him for free. I mean, they're not funded by the DNC, at least directly. I mean, they kind of are, but they don't exactly work for the DNC. So they're just kind of it's free advertising for Democrats, basically, on these news channels. So,
and on social media as well. So you're right.
That's true because of because of what gets censored and what clears. What their bent is. I've been really interested to see here lately the outcry when people are saying that Joe Biden is in fact not the president-elect right now.
Oh yeah,
have you noticed that, Cleve? That's a big issue.
Yeah.
Now you got Facebook and you got Twitter. Now, if they were going to be exactly correct, if they were going to be technically correct, then they would censor people that say that Joe Biden is the president-elect. Because, of course, we know that there is no president-elect until December when the electors choose the president. So, technically speaking, the president-elect has not been selected. And also, obviously, there's some things in dispute. So,
You make a great point.
Censor that.
You make a great point. And not only that, David, but as a matter of fact, Steve Scalise was recently on Fox Business Network's Morning with Maria, and he made the point you're making right now about this election not being decided yet.
It's not the AP who declares the winner. In fact, if you look at this election, Joe Biden has not been certified the winner of any swing state right now. So the states are the ones who certify and ultimately send their electors to Washington. That process is still weeks away.
So you're 100% right. He is not even the president-elect, although that's the title that's being bandied about right now. So, and I think that's kind of important because I actually believe, David, what's happening is the stage is being set. Should Trump prevail in the courts with the election, the stage is being set by the Democrats to make a grand hoorah about the fact that the true president, Joe Biden, has the election that was stolen from him, and he will become the one who is under assault by nefarious forces. Don't you see that scenario?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's one thing if the election is an obvious win, like it was 4 years ago, or like when it was with Obama's victories over McCain and then Romney. Everybody kind of knows what's going to happen. This particular election is currently in dispute. I mean, first of all, it's very, very close. There's litigation and things going on. So, I don't think it's weird for anybody to say Joe Biden hasn't won it yet. Everybody just calm down and be cautious. No, but the media want their word to reign.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if they don't want anybody to question what they're saying, even though they're not being precisely correct. Now, they could easily say that Joe Biden is projected to be the president, and some of them are saying it that way, but they intersperse that with saying that he is president-elect, which is just factually not true. Like I don't even care if they say that. I don't care if they say that. My problem is when Facebook and Twitter and different places censor people saying that he's not the president. They shouldn't be censoring that. If they're going to censor something, they should be censoring people that say he is, because technically he ain't.
Well, you're right. You're right. I mean,
And I don't, for Cleve personally, I don't think that Trump is going to end up prevailing here. I think that when you, in a situation like this, when you have to prove voter fraud, not only that you have to prove voter fraud, but you have to prove that it had an effect on the outcome, that's a lot of voter fraud in some of these states. It's thousands and tens of thousands of votes. If they can prove it, fine, but I'm not expecting that.
I got you.
So I don't. The scenario that you just described, I'm not expecting that to happen. But if it does happen, you have to know, Cleve, it is going to be just about Armageddon.
Well, that's my point. That's my
was
point.
A shock to
yeah.
the media.
Yeah. That's my point. The media is even telegraphing it. They're saying if by some weird chance in the universe that Trump prevails with this challenge, then it is just going to be pandemonium, riots, destruction. In other words, they're kind of like sending a warning shot saying he better not win this, because this is what's in the offing. And I actually believe they intend that. I believe there's a signal that somebody's going to give if it looks like Trump is going to prevail, that will try to throw this entire country into the state of chaos that you and I were talking about a long time ago. So, and I'm going to go out and make a statement, David. I actually believe that Trump is going to prevail, and
wow.
I see several scenarios where that could happen. There's been a lot of money put out, and I hate to think of it this way, but money does talk. Just saying, hey, if you have any information that can corroborate vote fraud, particularly vote fraud on the level that it impacted the election, then $1 million is coming your way, or something like that. I mean, they're already putting it out, and I believe that elicits action by people who would not otherwise do the honorable thing.
Well, and I think that's why we're going to know for sure. I mean, they're really trying. If it's out there and it's provable, they're going to prove it. That's what I do believe that. I just think that it's a very difficult thing to do, so I'm not expecting it. But,
I think it's
the media,
very difficult.
Cleve,
yes.
Back to the media for just a second. They've been telling us for 4 years that Trump is literally Hitler. Actually,
yeah.
Worse than Hitler, because they say at least Hitler did some good things for his people. just they make really weird comments like that.
They do.
But so they have to maintain this because they've been telling us this for 4 years, and everybody knows that a fascist tyrant is not going to go quietly. He's going to have to be bombed out of the White House with a SWAT team.
They've said that.
Because if he's really Orange Hitler, then that's the only way it's going to happen. So, this is a liberal fantasy. This idea that Trump is not going to leave peacefully if he loses has always been a liberal fantasy, because they have painted this guy as the worst ever. And if he just leaves, then that it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so they can't have that. They've got to believe. They've got to imagine. And they really want to see him marched out of the White House in handcuffs. They want it so bad.
Here's the amazing thing, David. They were saying what you just said, talking about the Democrats and the media were predicting that it might be necessary. Even Biden said it might be necessary to get the military to get Trump out of the White House. They were ready for this scenario because they knew that Trump would put up a big fight against what they had already planned to do with this vote scam thing. They already had that plan way back, and they're now trying to paint the narrative so that Trump comes out looking like the bad guy, rather than the guy who's uncovering a boatload of corruption. Hey, by the way, David, your state of Georgia is the center of the universe right now. You know that, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Races.
Wow. This is because if God forbid, Biden does prevail, and if, God forbid, your state, Georgia, lost both those Senate races, there will be no firewall between what a Biden-Harris progressive administration would do. It's pretty serious.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So the control of the Senate rests on what happens in Georgia. They need to win at least one race. They don't have to win both, but they need to win at least one. I think they're going to win both, but it's going to, like you said, it's going to be the center of the political universe. Well, and so there's going to be a lot of money and attention spent on the Georgia Senate races. It's unusual to have two Senate races in the same state at the same time. But that's the situation we're in. So, Republicans really need to mobilize and make sure they go out and vote.
Well, my good Senator Lindsey Graham has taken some campaign money from his campaign vault, $1 million that he's donating to the Senate race in Georgia, and he's asking other legislators and anybody else to do the same thing, because he's right. The progressives are going to pour a bunch of money into your home state of Georgia, trying to get this Senate in the hands of the Democrats. Yeah,
I believe I haven't looked at the polls, and to be honest with you, I haven't even looked at where each candidate ended up. But I believe that David Perdue, got just under 50% of the vote, so that one just barely went to the runoff. And then Kelly Loeffler should easily win that runoff, I think, or that election, I believe.
Yeah.
That's the one that I think is a little bit more likely to go to to go to Republicans. John Ossoff, who is running against David Perdue, is a little bit more of a popular Democrat in Georgia. So that one is a little more risky, but David Perdue did almost win it outright. So it's looking good, but they're going to have a lot of turnout from Republicans, because Democrats are going to do everything they can.
Oh man,
they are not satisfied, Cleve, with just getting rid of Donald Trump.
No,
that's kind of what they've said for years, that they just want to get rid of Donald Trump. They're not satified with that.
No, not
they don't want to work
at all.
With Republicans. They don't want to work across the aisle. They want to dominate.
Yeah.
So they need to have the Senate if they're going to do that.
Well, your friend and mine, Marco Rubio, himself a former candidate for the GOP nomination, he had an interesting thing to say about the situation as it exists right now. And he said, in his opinion, Rubio said, the president has changed the policies of the GOP. He is still going to be the most important Republican, whether or not he even wins this. And here's what he had to say.
Donald Trump is going to be the most popular and the most influential Republican in the country for the foreseeable future. And the message and the issues that he focused on are going to continue to live on and be important to address, irrespective of the outcome, whether he's president or whether he's not. And that was going to be true now or 4 years from now.
Wow. What do you think about that?
Well, I got to say that's big of little Marco.
I'll stop it. But his point's well taken. In other words, regardless of the outcome of this election, Trump's not going away. He will be, some say, a kingmaker for the GOP going forward if he doesn't retain the presidency. What say you?
Well, I think that's true, although I'm a little nervous about that.
How so?
Well, because Trump he sometimes turns on people for no reason. I mean, he says ugly things about people sometimes, and that hurts strategically, I believe. And I would hate to see everything that the Republicans can do hinge on him. And I don't necessarily believe that everything he says goes for gospel to Republicans. I mean, I know he's very popular inside the Republican Party, but I think there are a lot of Republicans that still, there are some Republicans that can take heat from him and still survive.
I see what you're saying.
I don't think it's necessarily that he's a kingmaker exactly. I do think that he has changed the Republican Party when it comes to certain policies, and more than that, but tactics for how to get certain policies done.
I hear what you're saying, but I guess what Rubio is saying, though, I believe, is simply this: if he is not the president, if he stays, which he would, I'm sure, he's Trump, active in what he's doing outside of the Oval Office, anybody he endorses is going to get a powerful boost, all right, because he is still Trump by far, I think, the most popular Republican right now for the Republican Party.
I think that's generally true, and I more than anything, what I think and what I hope has come out of the Trump presidency is he kind of showed Republicans how to win.
Yeah.
And there's some people that might scoff at that because, he just lost. If this result holds, he just lost. And they also lost seats in 2018. However, policy-wise and accomplishing things, he has done very, very well. He's also done very, very well with enthusiasm for people. And I think Cleve, Lindsey Graham is a perfect example of this, because Lindsey Graham, for the longest time, has been a softie. He's been kind of one of these spineless Republicans with nothing guiding him except following John McCain on foreign policy, wanting to spend a lot on the military and pursue every war. That's kind of been his thing. He's never been a dependable Republican until the Brett Kavanaugh saga. Lindsey Graham turned into a warrior, and I think something happened to him where he realized this is what it looked like, and maybe this is all just politics for Lindsey Graham. But what it looked like is that he realized who the Democrats were.
Well, I think what happened to him. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say this. I think it's really important for Republicans to realize who they're dealing with when it comes to the Democrats, and not play into their game. Right. And that goes to how you deal with the media. That goes to how you deal with other Democrats that are in the Senate and in Congress. That goes with all that stuff. They need to properly view their opponents, because I don't think they have for the longest time, which is why we nominated people like John McCain and Mitt Romney.
Ooh, forgive us. Well, the thing is, though, Trump changed all that, and I think Trump changed Lindsey Graham. For a while, Trump even had Mitch McConnell sounding like a warrior. My point is, I think that Trump, as you said earlier, taught them, you got to fight. Not only do you got to fight, but that aggressive posture that he took, even though you're right, I think he used words and said things that were unnecessary, but his posture was what caused the general populace of Republicans to get galvanized for the first time, because at least they saw somebody who was just not going to take it sitting down like we have in the GOP for many, 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 many years. So I think Trump transformed the GOP party, and it stays transformed. And what Rubio was hinting at, David, was that if Trump decided to run again, he'd win. At least he would be the front runner. That's what he said. He'd be the front runner in the Republican Party if he decided to run in the next election.
I don't think there's any way to dispute that if he decided to run in 4 years, that he would be the guy. I don't know why he wouldn't be. I mean, he just won like 72 million votes.
That's right.
And he's a very successful Republican president. So I think that's true. I kind of hope that he doesn't. But I kind of expect him to. I mean, just knowing how he is, I would expect him to run again, even though I kind of wish he wouldn't.
Well, David, I'll make you feel better. Don't worry. We will have some great candidates. Mitch will have the Mormon guy that I'm trying to think of.
Mitt Romney?
I wanted to sound like Biden. You didn't butt on that. Yeah, the Mormon guy.
Lost. Oh yeah. They love that guy. I'm hoping for Nikki Haley myself because look, Cleve, the Trump agenda without the Trump persona is pretty much unbeatable. I know that you disagree a little bit about that because the Trump persona. I mean, it's part of the package, and I understand that. However, the policies are winning. I mean, there's no way he loses. With his policies. His policies are extremely popular. The only thing that made him lose this election, if he ends up losing, is because so many people hated him so much because of his
but that's the problem. Again, to me to accept what you just said, I have to accept the legitimacy of the election, and I don't believe it is anywhere close to being representative of what really happened on election night. I believe that Trump literally won by larger margins than when he beat Hillary. This election, this ballot mess is putting a fog on all that, but Trump did not lose this election. It is being stolen. It will be stolen unless it's stopped. But Trump won, and I believe Trump not only won, David, but he had coattails, and that's the reason why you have all these Republicans winning seats in the House. And if we retain the Senate, it'll be because of his. So how does a guy have coattails like that and not able to win, except by what we're seeing happening, this ballot mess?
I will say I do think it's somewhat odd, although it's not impossible that the Republicans generally did so well. But that Trump didn't.
It's weird. That's weird.
That is kind of strange. I mean, that means that either that a lot of people are just voting for Joe Biden and not voting for anybody else, or they're voting split ticket, which is I don't know. I mean, that's possible. It's possible.
Yeah,
but, it had to happen on a massive scale.
Yeah, and that's the point, and it didn't. They're trying to steal this election, just like they tried to steal it from George W. Bush, which, by the way, that took a good many days before that was settled as well.
That took over a month.
It did.
So we're only like not even 10 days into this.
That's right.
Something like 10 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was worth fighting then. It's worth fighting now. And let's hear from our friend Rudy Giuliani, because we're talking about the court cases out there. And, of course, Rudy is in the forefront of getting information about that. And he was speaking on Fox News' Mornings with Maria, their business network. And he was saying that he is confident that they can actually win their lawsuits in Michigan, where, by the way, and where the Trump campaign has one going. And here's what he said.
We have about 300 witnesses who will tell you that in both Pennsylvania, meaning Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and in Detroit, it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster. Republicans were shut out, and they were making up votes for Biden.
So he feels pretty confident that with the testimony they have, that they got a legal case to get some of those battleground results possibly overturned.
Well, man, I hope it happens. I mean, it would be crazy. It would be crazy if it happens. It is 2020, so I guess anything could happen.
Anything can happen. Anything.
We'll see. Look, I think that they're going to find. I agree. I think that there was some voter fraud, and I think they're going to find some. I just am not sure that it's going to be enough.
Well, the point being is it has to be in those battleground states, and like you said, it has to be enough. But it also, to me, it has to be systemic, not just something that occurred because bad clerks here or a few bad apples there. They need to show a conspiracy to take away the votes of American citizens.
Well, if they can do that, it's going to be a huge deal. So we'll just let the process play out. That's what we need to do.
So I'm going to go out there and say my earlier prediction about Trump winning this election will stand. It just took a little bit longer to manifest because of the shenanigans going on by the Democrats. Have you been hearing some of the stuff that Biden and Kamala have planned? Some of the people they're going to bring on board in their cabinet and that kind of stuff. You been hearing some of that weird stuff?
No, I think I heard the name for chief of staff guy. I don't know who that was.
Yeah,
so, I haven't really heard any news about that. So what's who are they bringing on?
One of the biggies.
Are they bringing in their party?
One of the biggies is making a play for Secretary of Labor, none other than Bernie Sanders. I'm serious.
Great. That's awesome. Oh, man. That's just going to be great. Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And people of that ilk, because the progressives now under Bernie are saying, if you guys are in there, it's because we got you in there and we want power. So I heard a lot of folks saying, David, well, when Biden gets in there, he's going to be more moderate. He's not going to go to the crazy wing with AOC. I say, AOC and those guys have said, listen, you owe us. And their Green New Deal and a bunch of their stuff Biden will have to do.
Yeah, I think that Bernie's going to end up in the administration somewhere. I mean, he wrote the platform.
Yeah.
He's very involved. I would be surprised if he's not in the cabinet somewhere, and that's not good. That's not a good sign.
No, not that.
Neither is Elizabeth Warren being Treasury Secretary.
Oh my goodness gracious! So I mean, those things just send chills up your spine, and they do two things, David. They again reinforce what we just said. Republicans will have to win the Senate because at least by then you have some way of resisting. But unfortunately, Biden can do some things by executive order if he gets in there too. So it would be 4 years like we've never seen. Even under Obama, it would be some pretty challenging times.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that Biden, that Trump may not win this, and the Republicans are just going to have to fight it from the Senate? And I say Trump's going to win it. He's going to pull it out. It's going to be a miraculous thing, just like 2016 was a miraculous thing. Well, David, I'm sorry.
This will be even more miraculous if he pulls this off.
Well, God has a way of doing that. God likes one-upping himself sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
David Perry and I'm Cleve Walker. This has been a rather untraditional edition of Mere Conservatism because David is just trying to be safe and not expose me to anything that he might have been exposed to himself. David, where can he hear the broadcast again?
Well, we're going to have it on Facebook. You can see it there, also on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. You can search for Mere Conservatism, leave us a review, give us 5 stars or however many stars they let you do them all, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, David. And let's everybody do their part to keep from having a national face mask mandate under a Biden administration. Have a fantastic day.